Welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking way past the usual Hollywood glamour. We're skipping the red carpets and the blockbuster action sequences entirely because we are going to uncover the highly effective mental health and resilience strategies used by global superstar Tom Holland. We're going to deconstruct the actual psychological toolkit he uses to navigate what is, honestly, one of the most intense spotlights in the world.
So, let's dive into this question. What happens when a superhero needs saving? Because behind that beloved Spider-Man facade is a young man who had to proactively build a system to protect his peace when the entire world was watching him. When you're thrust into global fame at a really young age, the pressure is just unimaginable. And what we learn from Tom's journey is that survival in that kind of environment, it isn't an accident. It requires a highly deliberate, structured approach to mental wellness.
And this brilliantly illustrates Tom's foundational rule for authenticity. He actually attributes this mindset to Christian Bale, and it is all about protecting your energy. The quote goes, "If you have a problem with me, text me. And if you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me." Tom is fiercely intentional about only valuing the feedback of his tight-knit inner circle. He still lives in his hometown of Kingston, where he literally can't walk 5 feet without bumping into one of his mom's friends. By anchoring his self-worth to the people who actually have his phone number, his family, his friends, his local community, he effectively mutes the noise of millions of strangers who only know his public persona.
Part 1. The Foundation of Resilience. Learning from the Lows.
This first pillar of resilience builds directly from his childhood, specifically from watching his father navigate the highly volatile career of a stand-up comedian. See, Tom didn't learn resilience from reading a self-help book. He learned it by watching his dad relentlessly graft. Being a stand-up involves extreme highs and extreme lows. Tom would watch his dad do gigs that just didn't go well, and instead of crumbling, his dad would just brush it off his shoulder and move right on to the next one. And that exact modeling became Tom's armor. When his recent series, The Crowded Room, received incredibly harsh reviews from critics, Tom didn't let it destroy him. He used that exact same tool he learned from his father to just shrug off the criticism and keep moving forward.
Section 2. Protecting your mental peace, the social media battle. Okay, on the intensely draining set of The Crowded Room, Tom found himself constantly retreating to his chair to obsessively scroll through Instagram. He was hooked on finding out what people thought about him and engaging with this completely false version of his life. So he made a really mature announcement that he was stepping away from social media because it was becoming a problem and he wanted to proactively protect his mental health. But notice the total dissonance here between his reality and the media's sensationalized spin. The press ran with his announcement in a totally different direction, claiming he was having a nervous breakdown in New York. Tom pointed out how incredibly unfair and damaging this journalism was because it painted the act of seeking help and setting healthy boundaries in a negative light. He wasn't breaking down. Actually, scratch that. He was being highly proactive exactly so that he wouldn't break down.
Section 3. Leaving work at work. Boundary setting on set. When you're playing a psychologically taxing character like a young man with severe trauma and multiple personalities, protecting your personal emotional baseline is a matter of absolute survival. You literally cannot take that energy home with you. And really, this applies to any emotionally taxing job we might have, right? You have to find a way to leave the stress at the door. Tom realized very early in his career that digging up his own personal traumas, like imagining a family member getting sick just to cry on set, was incredibly unhealthy. The lines between his life and his character's life were blurring way too much. So, with the help of his early acting coach, Ben Perkins, he built this 3-step methodology. He relies on technical exercises to reach emotional peaks. He strictly leaves the character at work, and he never blurs his real-life emotions with fictional ones. It's just a brilliant strategy for emotional longevity in a highly demanding field.
Section 4. The journey to sobriety. Overcoming the hardest challenge.
Tom openly calls this the hardest thing he's ever done, addressing his growing dependency on alcohol. This realization didn't come from some dramatic crash, but rather after a really boozy holiday season where he decided to take a step back and test his own control. Let's trace this timeline together because the progression is super fascinating. He started with a standard dry January, but during that month, literally all he could think about was drinking. He was checking the clock, just waiting for the appropriate time to have a beer, and that terrified him. So he punished himself, as he put it, by extending the break through February to prove he didn't have a problem. During that time, he felt he couldn't even go to a pub and be social. The struggle was so real that he set a final milestone, his birthday on June 1st. He told himself if he could make it 6 months, he'd prove he was in control. And by the time June 1st arrived, he realized he had profoundly changed his life for the better, leading to being fully sober and thriving a 1.5 years later. By replacing the ritual of drinking alcohol with healthy alternatives, like electrolyte-filled non-alcoholic beers, he unlocked massive life benefits that totally transformed his daily energy. He actually bought a sleep-tracking Oura ring because despite working 14 hours and working out, he just couldn't sleep. The data showed him the booze was absolutely destroying his rest. Once he quit, his sleep rebounded, his mental clarity skyrocketed, and things that used to stress him out on set, they no longer fazed him. Plus, he genuinely loves being the dependable designated driver, making sure all his mates get home safely.
Section 5. Asking for help is strength, the ultimate superpower.
This entire journey, from navigating fame to setting boundaries and achieving sobriety, it all culminates in a central theme that Tom fiercely advocates for today, and that is completely redefining what it means to be vulnerable. Asking for help isn't a weakness, it's an act of profound courage. Tom believes that if you have the bravery to wake up, look at someone you trust, and admit you are having a hard time, society shouldn't stigmatize you. Instead, we should literally be giving you a pat on the back for taking that step.
And remember, help doesn't always have to look like clinical therapy on a couch. Sometimes it means finding a professional, for sure. But other times it's just a friend who will let you cry on their shoulder. Or, as discussed in the source material, it could just be a trusted teacher at school who offers you a completely non-judgmental space to just exist and be seen as a human being while you navigate your struggles. Help is everywhere if we just empower people to ask for it.
So what boundaries do you need to set in your own life today to protect your peace? As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've seen how a superstore protects his energy. But what about you? Whether it's putting down your phone and stepping away from the endless scroll, rethinking a daily habit that's just draining your energy, or finally gathering the courage to ask a friend for support, what step will you take today to protect your peace? Thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.